Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Sadashiva Samarambham Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam. Ramo Rajamanis Sada Vijayate Ramam Ramesham Bhaje Ramena Bihata Nishacharachamu Ramaya Tasmai Namaha. Ramannasti Parayanam Parataram Ramasya Dasosmyaham Rame Chittalaya Sada Bhavatu Me Bho Rama Mamuddhara Samasta Jana Kalyane Niratam Karunamayam Namami Chinmayam Devam Satgurum Brahma Vidwaram Satgurum Brahma Vidwaram Akhandam Satchidanandam Avang Manasagocharam Atmanam Akhiladharam Ashraye Bhishta Siddhaye Arthatopyadvayanandan Ati Tadvaita Bhanatah Guruna Radhya Vedanta Saram Vakshe Yathamati. Hari Om. After having completed the portion of Adhyaropa, we had seen the part of Apavada. Adhyaropa was to tell us how from that one cause, this variety of creation can emerge. Cause is one, effects can be many. And before one goes further in Vedanta, Apavada has to become well settled. This point we had seen earlier also. Well settled in the sense, whenever I look at Karya, I should be able to remember the Karana. One Mahatma Ji would say, his sadhana, his main sadhana was just to do pranams to each and everything of this creation. If not physically, at least mentally. Because everything has come from that same Brahma. This was Adhyaropa. In that Shuddha Brahma, it was shown how this creation can emerge in that Shuddha Brahma. Put it differently, from that Shuddha Brahma, how can this variety of creation emerge out? With the help of Upanishad mantra, with the help of logic, three gunas, how they play, all of that was explained just to show that variety in creation has Brahma as its cause. Only when we understand this, Apavada will make sense to us. Next step was to inquire whether Brahman has really become the effect. Brahman, which is the cause, it has really become the effect? Or is it appearing differently without undergoing any change? It is appearing differently, no doubt. But is it undergoing some change and then appearing differently? Like milk undergoing change, becoming yogurt? Or is it appearing differently without undergoing any change? So we say it is appearing differently without undergoing any change. And such a modification is called as Vivarta. Atattvato anyatha pratha vivarta. Atattvatha. Actually, there is no change which has come, but anyatha pratha is there. Sa tattvato anyatha pratha. If the object has undergone some change and it is appearing differently, that is called as Vikara. So because this creation is Vivarta, it cannot actually emerge from Brahma. Brahma is that unchanging substratum from which no real thing can emerge out. That is why we start the process of Apavada now. Apavada, again, we had seen, it is not destruction, but it is only dissolution or negation. It is not apratiti. Apratiti means non-perception, but it is badha. Badha means negation. So whatever effect is there, we try to dissolve that effect in the preceding cause. Then again, that thing we try to dissolve in the previous cause. And like this, it traces back all the way to pure consciousness. So we started with world of names and forms. We dissolved them into Panchikruta Panchamahabhutas, the grossified 5 elements. And this is where the main sadhana chatushtaya which is needed is Vairagya. Otherwise, Nama Rupa, it is not easy to dissolve into 5 elements also. So first step was dissolve Nama Rupa into 5 elements. Then observe how those 5 elements are being perceived. So actually it is subtle only. Sense organs, by the time they have taken them inside, it has already become subtle. And you cannot establish gross without the presence of subtle. In other words, without thought, without vritti of indriya. Indriyas are subtle, right? Sense organs are subtle. Without the vritti of indriya. Vritti of indriya means thought through sense organs. Chakshur vritti means thought of shape, thought of sound. Without that, we cannot actually establish the Panchamahabhuta outside. So Swamiji said, dissolve that gross 5 elements into subtle. Everything is happening in thoughts. Pay attention to thoughts. Now thoughts are there, or subtle world is there. That subtle world one should dissolve into Karana Avastha. Means asking this question, where are thoughts rising? This point we had seen in the last class. We'll realize there is this vasanas or unmanifest something is there from which these thoughts are rising. So dissolve all of those thoughts into the cause, which is this Karana Avastha. So what are we left with? Ajnanam, which is this Karana Avastha. Other words for Ajnanam are Maya. If I explain another word, I have to elaborate it. Another word is Mula Vidya. One is called as Tula Vidya, another is called as Mula Vidya. Tula Vidya means ignorance about worldly things. Ignorance about French, ignorance about math, ignorance about physics. That is called as Tula Vidya. And Mula Vidya is ignorance about Brahma, which is of the nature of 3 gunas. Mula Vidya is of the nature of 3 gunas. It is Sadasadbhyam Anirvachaniyam. Neither can you call it as Sat, nor can you call it as Asat. I think I need to recode the verse number, which is that Ajnanam verse that we were referring to in the last class. 34. Okay, whenever we get this word Maya, Ajnanam, Mula Vidya, we should go to that 34th verse. All indicators of Maya are given in that verse. So this is called as Mula Vidya. Now Tula Vidya, it is not Trigunatmika. Right? Ignorance about French is not Sattva, Rajas and Tamas. But if you say Mula Vidya, that Ajnanam is Trigunatmika. It has 3 gunas and all other definitions that we saw about Ajnanam. So now we are left with Shuddha Chaitanya Brahma and this ignorance. And this is where we had seen, how are you going to dissolve ignorance into Brahma? By asking the question, where does ignorance stay? It cannot stay in its effect. It cannot stay in buddhi. It cannot stay in the world outside. It has to stay in Chaitanya. But in that Chaitanya, nothing can really appear. It is Shuddha, it is Asanga, it is Niranjana. Niranjana word comes for that actually. Niranjana means taintless, that which is ever pure. Anjana, one meaning is collyrium. Another meaning of Anjana is Maya. Niranjana means that which is devoid of Maya. What we saw in Ramayana class yesterday, Bhagwan is Sukumara. So Sukumara that Sitaji's sparsha also is hard for him. Meaning what? Ajnana itself is a very subtle upadhi. Compared to Sthula and Sukshma, Ajnana is very, very subtle. It is avyakta actually. You cannot even call it subtle. But even that avyakta upadhi does not do sparsha of Brahma. So Sitaji that represents Prakriti and Bhagwan Rama represents Shuddha Chaitanya. So in that way, Apavada Prakriya is completed. So what remained? Only Shuddha Chaitanya. Now this is the beauty of Vedanta. Without doing anything, everything is accomplished. And actually, only because it is this way, it is Jnana Marga. If I say there is some doing involved now, then we switch into Karma Marga. Right? So from Jnana Marga to Karma Marga, this switch happens if we have some erroneous notions. That okay, I have understood Apavada Prakriya now, I have to go and do something. What should I do to abide in that Brahma? You say we don't have to do anything. I have to know that I am already Brahma. Doing comes for purity of mind. Doing comes for increasing sadhana chatushtaya to think in this way. Right? Because it is not easy to even start thinking in this direction that everything is panchikrita panchamahabhuta. Come to subtle, then pay attention to where the subtle is rising. Right? That needs sadhana chatushtaya. For that, all other practices are mentioned. So karma is in that. If somebody mixes up both, that is where Bhagwan Shankaracharya ji writes long, long bhashya on Jnana Karma Samuchchaya Khandanam. How knowledge and karma cannot go together. He says, on one hand, for karma you need to give reality to this mind. You need to give reality to this individual. Sharira has to be given reality. On the other hand, for jnanam, you are negating all of them. So if you hold on to karma, means if you hold on to kartrutva, then negation will become difficult. Almost it is impossible. So what is the best path? Bhagavan says, with karma, one should purify the mind. And with that purified mind, Shravana, Manana, Nididhyasana, and then come to this Apavada Prakriya. Okay. Now Swamiji says, look at the genius, mindset of our acharyas. They have elaborated this Adhyaropa Apavada, but in and through that, they taught us something more. What is that? They say they have now prepared us to understand Mahavakya. Without even telling us. They were just building the ground, preparing ourselves to understand Mahavakya. Let us see how that happens now. 143 verse. Abhyam adhyaropa apavadabhyam adhyaropa apavadabhyam Tat Tvam PadArtha Shodhanam api siddham bhavati. Says, look what has happened. Abhyam adhyaropa apavadabhyam. With this process of adhyaropa and apavada, in and through the process of understanding adhyaropa and apavada, tat tvam padartha shodhanam api siddham bhavati. It has made us ready now to understand the padartha. Padartha means meaning of the word. Which words? The word tat and the word tvam. Now that we have understood the meaning of the word tat and tvam, he says we can inquire more into that word now. Inquiring more into that word is called as Shodhanam. Shodhanam is made out of Shuddha Dhatu. Shuddhi word, you must have heard, right? Shuddhi means to purify. You get that gold ore in the beginning. You say it has to go through Shodhanam. Means it has to become purified. Whatever is needed has to be kept. Whatever is not needed has to be left behind. So in the same way, we are going to do Shodhanam of the word Tat and the word Tvam. But before you start doing Shodhanam, you should know what it means. Right? Literal meaning of the word should become clear. So he says that is being accomplished by this prakriya of Adhyaropa and Apavada. So pada means a word. Pada means a word. PadArtha means meaning of that word. So rose, for example, is pada. But whenever the word rose is heard, the meaning of that word which comes in our mind, that red color flower which is there. So that is called as PadArtha. Nama and Rupa, they say both of them go together. But sometimes, if we don't know PadArtha, pada we are listening, but meaning doesn't become clear. For example, if I go to France, if I'm not going, if I go to France, and in the airport, there is announcement which is made in French. Now you are going there, and some airports, they will not have English at all. They will have only that regional language. Let us say they are doing announcement in French. Now pada I am listening. Whatever they are saying, pada I am listening, but no PadArtha jnanam is taking place. Ears are open, you can hear the sound coming. But meaning of each of the word, not that he is making any grammatical mistake also. All sentences are very nicely formed, but PadArtha is not understood. So Swamiji says, if we don't understand PadArtha of Tat and Tvam, the danger is we will keep repeating Tat Tvam Asi, not knowing what it means. So in this verse he is saying, if we have to understand Tat Tvam Asi Mahavakya, we have to understand all these words in this much of detail. Tat and Tvam should be elaborated, and we should appreciate what Tat means and what Tvam means. Without that, it will become mere repetition of Tat Tvam Asi Mahavakya. And Tat Tvam Asi Mahavakya is not for japa. Tat Tvam Asi Mahavakya is not japavakya, that you keep repeating Tat Tvam Asi and one day I will get knowledge of that absolute truth. We say Tat Tvam Asi is Vichara Vakya, Anusandhana Vakya, Upadesha Vakya. Later on we'll see Mahavakya when we come. These are to be understood and meaning should be arrived at after thorough thinking. So he says that is this Mahavakya. That is why each word one has to understand. Maharaji would say, if you ask a child, what is nose? And he keeps giving alternative words. He says, nose is something which is in between the eyes. Nose is something which is above the mouth. Nose is something which is below the forehead. He says, until he gives these definitions, you are very doubtful whether he really knows what is nose. Means he should be able to say, this is nose. Right? He would say, in the same way, when Tat Tvam Asi Mahavakya is uttered, one should be able to say, what is that Pratyagatma which is indicated through this Mahavakya? I am Brahma. This meaning should become clear through Tat Tvam Asi Mahavakya. And you would say sometimes it happens with Brahma Lakshana also. You say, what is Atma? Atma, another word is given. Atma is that pure consciousness. What is pure consciousness? It is of the nature of happiness. But still this sadhaka feels it is somebody else. So he says, Tat Tvam Asi Mahavakya will become clear only when we know each of these PadArtha very well. What is Tat? Pada? Pada means that word. Tat is already there, but what does Tat mean? PadArtha should become clear. Okay. All errors about that word should be removed. That is called as Shodhanam. Shodhanam, another meaning is research. Our CIF, we call it as Shodha Samstha, Institute of Research. So Shodha means to inquire into something and come to the truth of that thing. So they say the word Tat, let us do Shodhanam now. But before that, Swamiji says, just look at the Vachyartha of it, the literal meaning of it. What does, when you hear the word Tat, what should be the literal meaning that should come to our mind? Tathahi Ajnanadi Samashtihi Etat Upahitam Sarvajnatvadi Vishishtam Chaitanyam Etad Anupahitam Cha Etatrayam Taptayaf Pindavate Ekatvena Avabhasamanam Tatpada Vachyartho Bhavati. So this verse, he says 144, is Vachyartha of Tatpada. Now what is Vachyartha? That meaning that comes to mind when Vachanam is said. Vachyartha means that. Meaning means Artha Spuranam. The Artha means meaning. That meaning comes in our mind right when the word is uttered or that statement is made. That is called as Vachyartha. Literal meaning. So for example, if somebody says apple, right? The meaning of that apple is the fruit. There is no ambiguity over there. But if somebody says, he is apple of my eyes, this child is apple of my eyes. So there the word apple, you don't literally see two apples, right? So it is not Vachyartha, it is something more. So that meaning, and you also think, what does he mean? Apple of the eyes. How did he connect apple to this statement? You think more beyond the words, right? So when you use some technique, prakriya is used, and then you come to one conclusion about the meaning of that word. That is called as Laksyartha. Implied meaning or indicated meaning. Vachyartha is the moment you utter a word, that meaning comes to mind. Laksyartha is having thought about that word through some prakriya. There is a systematic way of thinking also. Like to conclude what is the word apple, you have to think a little. Right? Why did he give the metaphor or the simile of an apple only? So with that, these two meanings will become clear. One is Vachyartha, another is Laksyartha. Laksyartha again we will see when we come to the next verse. Here Swamiji is telling, you see, even to understand the literal meaning of the word Tat, we have to understand Adhyaropa clearly. Literal meaning. See, what should come in my mind when I hear the word Tat? What is the other meaning of Tat? Bhagavan. What should come to our mind after studying Vedanta when we hear the word Bhagwan Rama, Bhagwan Shiva, any Ishta Devata for that matter? They say, Ajnanadi Samashti. The conditioning at Samashti level, starting from Ajnanam. Okay, so Karana Sharira or Ajnanam is the first conditioning, then Sukshma Prapancha, subtle conditioning, and gross conditioning. All three are there. Bhagwan's conditioning is not only Ajnanam. Ajnanam plus subtle plus gross. All three conditionings, they form one set. That should first come in my mind, that this is conditioning of my Bhagwan. Then Tad Upahitam Sarvajnatvadi Vishishtam Chaitanya. Then the conditioned consciousness. Consciousness conditioned by these conditionings, which has all the names. That my Bhagwan is Sarvajna, Sarvashaktiman, Sarveshwara. These words are clear, right? I don't have to translate it. All knowing, all powerful, all pervading. This is my Bhagavan. This meaning should come to mind. First is his conditioning. Second is conditioned consciousness. And third one he says is Anupahitam Chaitanyam. Sarvajnatvadi Vishishtam Chaitanyam, Etat Anupahitam Chaitanyam. And pure consciousness, which is unconditioned, that should also come in my mind. All three together, if they are mixed up, I don't see them as three distinct entities. That is called as Vachyartha. I don't feel that Anupahita Chaitanya is separate and Upadi and Upahita Chaitanya, they are different. If I don't feel that way, I feel everything is mixed up. He says that is called as Vachyartha. How are they mixed up? He says, Anupahitam Chaitanyam Etatrayam Taptayaf Pindavat. Just like you have fire and iron ball, when both of them are together, properties of each other get mixed up. Iron ball is cold, but it appears hot. Iron ball is black in color, it appears red. And fire, which is not having any form, appears to be round. Fire, which doesn't have weight, appears to have that weight of that iron ball. So when I'm seeing that iron ball, I don't recognize fire and iron ball. I just see it as one. So he says, in that way, if pure consciousness, conditioned consciousness, and conditioning, they get mixed up, that is called as Vachyartha of Tatpada. Pindavat Ekatvena avabhasamanam Tatpada Vachyartha bhavati. Ekatvena avabhasamanam means non-distinguished. All three are together. But we realize even to do siddhi of this, even to actually come to understand Tatpada Vachyartha requires so much of sadhana. If Tatpada really becomes established in our life, that person will become Bhakta. Why? Because whenever he thinks of Bhagavan, he thinks of this entire creation. So even for Dvaita, right? He doesn't see world and Bhagavan. He sees world as Bhagavan. He says, I am different, that is okay. But this world is nothing but Bhagavan's Upadhi. But Vachyartha is clear, right? Anupahita Chaitanya, Upahita Chaitanya, and Upadhi. Three things are together and mixed up. Now, what is Laksyartha of Tatpada? Bhagavan's essential nature, implied meaning by the word Tat. Etad Upadhi Upahita Adhara Bhutam Anupahitam Chaitanyam Tatpada Lakshyartho Bhavati. Etad Upadi Upahita. This pure consciousness, which is the Adhara Bhuta, which is a substratum of the conditioning, meaning Ajnana, Sukshma, Sthula conditioning, and Upahita Chaitanya also, conditioned consciousness. That unconditioned consciousness is the implied meaning of the word Tat. Anupahitam Chaitanyam Tatpada Lakshyartha Bhavati. Now, literal meaning was that meaning which came to mind whenever we heard that word. Like lotus, that word brought one meaning of that flower. But eyes are like lotus. Eyes are like lotus. That means I have to look at the implied meaning of the word lotus. Right? That gentleness. Like Goswamiji uses that, right? Sitaji's eyes were like lotus, or wherever Sitaji saw, lotus is bloom. So gentleness is there, calmness is there. All of those similarities are taken. Once in a blue moon, they say, right? You come to the class once in a blue moon. Means what? You should not start looking for blue moon there. Or see, where are you coming from? He says, just like that blue moon is rare, this person coming to class is also rare. So you are taking Lakshana. Lakshyartha, implied meaning of the word blue moon is rarity. Implied meaning of the word lotus is gentleness. So like this is called as Laksyartha. So in Tatpada, although there are three things, pure consciousness, conditioned consciousness, and conditioning, the implied meaning of the word Tat is Shuddha Chaitanya. Now put Bhagwan Shabda in place of Tat, it will hit more. The implied meaning of the word Bhagwan is Shuddha Chaitanya. In Rama Gita, this is how Lord Shiva introduces Bhagwan Rama. Vishaya Karana Surajiva Sameta Sabate Eka Eka Sacheta Sabakara Parama Prakasaka Zoi Rama Avadha Rama Anadi Avadhapati Soi. He says, start from Vishaya, come to sense organs. From sense organs, come to Devatas. From Devatas, come to Ahankara. From Ahankara, come to the illuminator of Ahankara. He says, this illuminator of Ahankara and the world outside is my Anadi Avadhapati Rama. And in 7th chapter, Bhagwan is expressing his angst. He says, why are people unable to recognize this facet of mine? This is 7:24 and 25th verse, 7th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. Bhagwan says, Naham prakasha sarvasya yoga maya samavrutah. I don't reveal myself in true form to everybody because our minds are clouded with maya. He doesn't say bhakti, huh? He says minds are clouded with maya. Mudhoyam na bhijanati loko mam ajam avyayam. People don't recognize me in my aja form. Aja means unborn and avyaya means non-modifying. Means as Shuddha Chaitanya, that form is never recognized. And Bhagwan's analysis is because our minds are extrovert. If somebody becomes true bhakta, Bhagwan says, I will take them from step 1 to step 2. What is step 1? Tatpada Vachyartha, I will make them understand. Tatpada Lakshyartha also I will make them understand. Both are there. So Tatpada Vachyartha was explained. Now Tatpada Lakshyartha is explained. This is just setting the stage for Mahavakya. Now Swamiji says, in the same way, we should understand Tvampada Vachyartha and Tvampada Lakshyartha. Now here also we will notice, for the literal meaning of the word Tvam, we need the prakriya of Adhyaropa. See what is the literal meaning that should come to our mind whenever we hear the word Tvam. Ajnanadi vyashtihi etad upahita alpajnatvadi vishishta chaitanyam etad anupahitam etad anupahitam cha etad trayam taptayah pindavate ekatvena avabhasamanam Tvampada Vachyartho bhavati. Tvam Asi Mahavakya comes actually in Chandogya Upanishad, 6th chapter. Right? So the word Tat and Tvam, both of them are pronouns. If you say that you are. So what is that referring to? See, in Chandogya Upanishad, it doesn't become clear actually. In Chandogya, it is only said, Sadeva Somya Idamagra Asit Ekameva Dvitiyam. O Somya, O child, Uddalaka Muni is telling his son Shwetaketu. Before this creation, there was that only Sat Vastu. Sadeva Somya Idam Agra Asit. And later he says, Tat Tvam Asi. That Sat which was there in the beginning of creation, that Sat you are. O Shvetaketu. So Tvam refers to Shvetaketu, Tat refers to that Sat. But when we read Prakarana Granthas like these, our Acharyas help us understand how to appreciate the word Tat also. He says only by saying Tat is Sat, we will not appreciate what Mahavakya is. So he says Tat refers to all those components what we saw before, Vachyartha. Now Tvam literally refers to Shvetaketu. Right? So you might feel Shvetaketu means the individual, the teacher is telling Tat Sat Tvam Asi. But see what Swamiji says. Tvam is referring to all these things. Ajnanadi Vyashti. Ajnanadi means the conditioning part. The vasanas or Karana Sharira. Then the subtle mind that I have, sense organs, pranas, all of these are subtle. Subtle conditioning. Then comes the gross body. So Ajnanadi means all three together. Karana Sharira, Sukshma Sharira and Sthula Sharira. Okay, Ajnanadi. Then Etad Upahita. Then the conditioned consciousness, which is getting conditioned by these three conditionings. What is the title it gets? Alpadnyatvadi Vishishta Chaitanya. It is knowing very little. Bhagwan was Sarvajna. Jiva will always be Alpadnya. No matter how hard Jiva tries, Alpadnya can never become Sarvajna. At the most, it can become Bahudnya. Bahudnya means it can get many degrees, many, they say, right, this person is a walking encyclopedia. Ask them anything, they will rattle off, different things. That is possible, but that is Bahudnya. But Jiva can never become Sarvajna. The good news is, for Moksha, we don't have to become Sarvajna. For Moksha, we have to know our nature as Brahma. Not even become Brahma. Know our nature as Brahma. And surrender ourselves as this individual to Sarvajna Bhagwan. We should not swap roles in transactional world. He says Bhagwan is Sarvajna, Jiva is Alpadnya. We are just trying to appreciate what is the literal meaning of the word Jiva and come to the Laksyartha of it. Okay, so in the literal meaning, Vachyartha, the first thing I should think about is Ajnana and all the conditionings. Ajnana, Sukshma and Sthula. Then comes the conditioned consciousness, Upahita Chaitanya. And the third one is Anupahitam Cha. Shuddha Chaitanya also is there, which very conveniently gets missed. Now you see Adhyaropa importance. Whenever we thought about ourselves without Adhyaropa, what would come to mind? At the most, Sthula Sharira. Not even Sthula Sharira. Sometimes it is just our name. Name or some title. We don't even think, I am this person having Sthula Sharira. None of that comes to mind. But he says, if Adhyaropa has worked, then all three things should come to mind. Starting from Ajnana Upadi, means all Upadi should come to mind. Upahita Chaitanya should come to mind. And Anupahita Chaitanya also should come to mind. But the thing is, all three are mixed together. Just like the iron ball and fire. Taptaya Pindavat Ekatvena Avabhasamanam Tvampada Vachyartha Bhavati. All three things mixed together is called as literal meaning of the pada. Literal meaning of the word Tvam. Three things at totality mixed together is called as literal meaning of the word Tat. Bhagwan Shankaracharya ji, this we have seen in the previous verses also, or previous topics. In Viveka Chudamani, he says, person who is able to think of himself as this gross body plus subtle body, Bhagwan says, I call that person Vidwan. Dehohamityeva jadasya buddhi. Dehe cha jive vidushastvaham dihi. The person who says, I am only this body, he says that person is jada. Means mooda. Dehe cha jive. I am body also and subtle body also. One who is able to include this transmigrating entity. Meaning what? This is just one sharira that I have had. There have been several in the past, several waiting if I don't get moksha now. That clause applied, huh? It is always there. He says if somebody is able to add this transmigratory entity, subtle body, that person is vidusha, vidwan. Viveka vijnana mato mahatmani brahma aham iti eva. For Mahatmas who are vivekis, awakened to that truth, they have this notion, I am Brahma alone. Not Sharira, not Jiva. But first step is to go beyond Sharira, to come at least to Jiva. Then it comes to Brahma. Now what is the Laksyartha? We saw Vachyartha of Tvampada, now Laksyartha of Tvampada. Etad upadhi, upahita, adhara bhutam, anupahitam, pratyak anandam, turiyam, chaitanyam, tvampada lakshyartho bhavati. Now, tvampada lakshyartha, the implied meaning of the word tvam. It says, etat upadi upahita adhara bhutam. Adhara bhutam means that which is the witness, that which is the substratum in which upadhi of ajnanam is appearing, upadhi of mind is appearing, sense organs are appearing, sharira is appearing. Upadhi upahita adhara bhutam shuddha chaitanyam. Anupahitam chaitanyam, that unconditioned consciousness, which is pratyak. Pratyak means it does not become drushya. Indicators are given of that chaitanya. Now Vedanta, if somebody is sincerely surrendered unto Vedanta, wherever this Atma Lakshana comes, they go into meditation. Like, somebody like Raman Maharshi ji, whenever they read Atma Lakshana, they say they are talking about me. This is the greatest praise actually, Vedanta, what it can give. Pratyak means it is not drushya. It is not seen. And it is Ananda Swarupa. It is not Vritti Ananda. Ananda in mind, sometimes it comes, it goes. Sometimes it is Sukhakara Vritti, sometimes it is Dukkhakara Vritti. This is not that, it is Ananda Swarupa. Then it is Turiyam. All three states of experiences, it is different from that. But it is Adhara Bhuta, that is why it is pervading that also. So how will you describe such a state? You say, call it the fourth. Turiyam means fourth. But it is not a fourth state. It is that which is in and through all other three states. It is the Adhara of the three states. But it is not one of those three states. Okay. It is not only Jagrat, nor only Swapna, nor only Sushupti. That is this Turiya. Chaitanyam Tvampada Lakshyartha Bhavati. This consciousness is Lakshyartha of the word Tvam. Now Swamiji says, read that statement again, 143. Abhyam Adhyaropa Apavadabhyam Tat Tvam PadArtha Shodhanam api siddham bhavati. With this process of Adhyaropa and Apavada, we have actually accomplished the goal of understanding the word Tat and the word Tvam. Means we were not actually interested in just talking about creation, talking about Panchikaranam and so on. We were actually preparing ourselves for Mahavakya. That is the point. And minus this vocabulary, he says Mahavakya will not become clear. We might keep repeating Mahavakya, but it will not become clear in its true essence. Now, next topic is about Mahavakya, a very beautiful topic. If you want to say what is the uniqueness of Vedanta Saar, what does Vedanta Saar give that other texts don't give? That is this portion. the clarity and the precision in understanding Mahavakya, that is the apurvata, uniqueness of Vedanta Saar. There are few other texts like Vakya Vritti, there is elaboration only on Mahavakya. And then there are some more other subtler texts which are written, Sankshepa Sharirakam, where same detailed analysis is done of Mahavakya. But in the Prakarana Granthas that we see, most Prakarana Granthas, even if they talk about Mahavakya, they will not elaborate it. How to understand Vakya itself. They will elaborate how to do Shodhanam. Like Viveka Chudamani is an elaboration on how to do Tvampada Shodhanam. How to do Viveka between self and the not self. Right? When it comes to Tvam. Tatpada, there is not much discussion there. And later part is all about meditation. But Vedanta Saar, over here Swamiji is going to systematically explain how to understand Mahavakya. Okay. Now before we enter, some basic introduction to Mahavakya. It is said the crown of entire Vedas is Vedanta. Crown meaning the essence of entire Vedas. If you just extract the main point, that will be what we study in Upanishads, that is Vedanta. Anta word means that. In Vedanta there are two words, right? Vedanam antaha. Antaha means nirnaya. What is the final conclusion of all the Vedas? You see, that is what is said in Vedanta. Now, if Vedanta is the crown, Mahavakya is the crest jewel. In that crown also, that one statement, which is the essence of even Vedanta, the most important conclusion of Vedanta, that is being said in Mahavakya. So what does Mahavakya mean? Mahavakya is something which will remove finitude from my individual. That which removes finitude from the individual and which removes remoteness from Bhagavan. That which removes remoteness from Bhagavan, that Vakya is called as Mahavakya. Means I and Bhagavan, they are two different entities. This notion which is removed by that Vakya is called as Mahavakya. Akhandartha Bodhaka Vakya. If through whatever means there is some distinction between me and Bhagavan, so it is Khandartha Bodhaka. Khanda means break. There is some distinction between you and God. Akhandartha is that Vakya which will point out absolute oneness between the individual and the total. Now see, even when we say Bhagavan, remember all things should come to mind. This entire creation, subtle world, causal world, conditioned consciousness and unconditioned consciousness. When I say I, all things should come to mind. Upadi, Upahita and Anupahita. So this Vakya, which reveals this absolute identity, that is called as Mahavakya. Puja Gurudev would call this as identity revealing statements. Identity revealing statements. We have our identity card, right? That reveals one transactional identity. And all identities will be with Upadhi only. What is my height? What is my nationality? Everything else is with regards to physical body or some qualities of the mind. Upadhi only. What he says, true identity is revealed through Mahavakya. Now, Mahavakya, when we hear it, sometimes in the beginning we feel it's some long sentence, Mahan Vakya. But then we say it is only 3 words, Tat Tvam Asi. So what is so Mahan about it? It says Mahatta is Artha Mahatta. The meaning which is derived from those words, that meaning is Mahan. That is why it is called as Mahavakya. And sometimes you also feel there are only 4 Mahavakyas. The main one is Tat Tvam Asi. Another is Prajnanam Brahma. Then Aham Brahmasmi. then Ayam Atma Brahma. Different Upanishads, these Mahavakyas come, and we feel these are the only 4 Mahavakyas. But actually speaking, every Upanishad will have several Mahavakyas. If not several, at least one Mahavakya. Every Upanishad will have at least one Mahavakya. Meaning that statement which reveals my infinitude. That statement which points out the oneness between individual and total, that statement is called as Mahavakya. Now something to think about. All of us chant Ganapati Atavara Shirsham. Right? Ganapati Atavara Shirsha, what is the later part of that title? Ganapati Atavara Shirsha Upanishad it is. Although we chant it as a stotram, but it is Ganapati Atavara Shirsha Upanishad. So if somebody wants, you can think about where is Mahavakya in Ganapati Atavara Shirsha Upanishad. You will start paying closer attention to words. You will see there is Tvampada coming, there is Tatpada coming, and there is oneness also pointed out. And not in every place it will be as explicit as Tat Tvam Asi. Tat Tvam Asi we take for analysis because it is very explicit. Tatpada is there, Tvampada is there, Asipada is there. But many a times Asipada is not there. Tatpada will be described, Tvampada will be described, and it will be put together. Means we have to understand that is Mahavakya. Okay, so there are different Mahavakyas. I'm seeing which part to cover next time. Now let us take Tat Tvam Asi Mahavakya. How many padas are there? 3 padas. Tat, Tvam and Asi. Now, these 3 padas, what do they indicate? Tat pada is referring to Bhagavan. Tvam pada is referring to Jiva. And Asipada is pointing out the oneness. Even literally to hear this statement, it is very unnerving. You say, you are Bhagavan. Tat Tvam Asi. The reason we are discussing this is how important it is to analyze a statement. Because Tat Tvam Asi is said, we cannot ignore that statement. Because it is said in Upanishads, we take Upanishad as Pramana. Now, how to understand Tat Tvam Asi? In that there are different schools of thoughts. So somebody says, how can you even say Tat Tvam Asi? Because there is so much of contradiction between Tat and Tvam. Bhagavan Shankaracharya ji gives examples. He says Tat and Tvam, the first example he gives, Khadyota Bhanvoho. This Tvam which is there is like a Khadyota, glowworm. And Tat is like the sun. That is the difference between both of them. Meaning he is saying, Jiva is Alpajna, Khadyota like, tiny little Jiva. And Bhagavan is Sarvajna. How can you say Tat Tvam Asi? Tat Tvam Asi, you said you are Bhagavan. How can you say Tat Tvam Asi? Khadyota Bhanvoho, that is not possible. Then he says, Raja Bhrutyoho. Bhagavan is like the master and Jiva is like the dasa. Like you have king and the one who is serving the king. Means one is controller, another is controlled. So Bhagavan is controller, Jiva is controlled. King is the controller, subjects are the controlled. So how can you say the subjects are the king? Raja Bhrutyoho. Kupambu Rashyoho. Means one is like a well. Water in a well. Means tiny little bit of water is there. Another is water in the ocean. Jiva is like water in the well and Bhagavan is water in the ocean. How can you compare both of them? Means he says, even if you look at it from Ananda standpoint, Jiva's Ananda is like Kupambu, water in the well. And Bhagavan's Ananda is Ananda Swarupa. Bhagavan Rama, that is how his name was introduced. Jo Ananda Sindhu Sukharasi. Si Karate Trailoka Supasi. Have you seen Bhagavan how Nirvikara he is? Even when Kaikeyi says everything, that word was Sukhavachan for him. That is Bhagwan, and Jiva is small thing is sufficient to disturb. Right? So Jiva says Kupambu, and Ishvara is like the ocean. Then he says, last one is Paramanu Mervoho. Paramanu means atom. Meru means the whole earth. Like atom and earth, atom is only in one place and earth is so vast and all pervading. You say Jiva is like tiny individual over here. And just now you said Bhagwan is this entire creation. So how can you say Tat Tvam Asi? So then other darshanas come. You say this is exactly what we were saying. You don't say that there is Advaita, that there is oneness between Jiva and Brahma. We will explain how to open up the word Tat Tvam Asi. How to open up the statement Tat Tvam Asi. They say it is Samastapada. Samastapada means it's a compound statement. So in compound statement, the vibhakti drops. You have to add the vibhakti and then open up that statement. Raja Purushaha is one compounded word. So when you open it, it will become Rajnyaha Purushaha. Means the person of the king. So Rajnyaha word, when you made it into a compound, it became Raja. The vibhakti, sixth case, vibhakti, whatever was getting added, that got dropped. So that is why Raja Purusha became. So now they say Tat Tvam Asi also has to be opened up in that way. It's a compound word. You have to open the compound word. And every vibhakti, so Tat Shabda, if you decline it, Tatte Tani, Tena Tabhyam Taihi, Tasmai Tabhyam Tebhyah. If you decline all the vibhaktis in the word Tat, every vibhakti becomes one darshana. One school of thought is every vibhakti. So they say, how will you open the word Tat Tvam Asi? They say, do Tritiya vibhakti. Tena Tvam Asi. Your life is running through Bhagwan only. Tena Tvam Asi. Then if you say, no, do Chaturthi vibhakti. Tasmai Tvam Asi. Chaturthi vibhakti is for. Means your life is for Bhagwan. Tasmai Tvam Asi. He says, no, do Panchami vibhakti. Tasmat Tvam Asi. You are from Bhagwan. Just like the spark of the conflagration which is there, it comes from that fire, from that conflagration. Like that, all of us are from Bhagwan. Tasmat Tvam Asi. He says, no, do Shashti vibhakti. Tasya Tvam Asi. You are of the Lord. You are of Bhagwan. You belong to Bhagwan. Or else do Saptami vibhakti. Tasmin Tvam Asi. You are in the lap of Bhagwan. Or you open it up in a different samasa altogether. You say Tat Iva Tvam Asi. You are like Bhagwan. You are not Bhagwan, but you are like Bhagwan. Tat Iva Tvam Asi. Now these are all different schools of thoughts. They have also analyzed Mahavakya. But this becomes Khandartha Bodha. Khandartha Bodha means there is some kind of limitation which is kept in this Jiva, and oneness is pointed out with Ishvara. Or Sambandha is pointed out, but not Akhanda. So now Swamiji says, in Vedanta, we accept all these. Right? Bhakti Darshana, if you read Sundar Kanda, every vibhakti you will be able to find one chaupai. Jambavanji says, Tasmai Tvam Asi to Angadji. Our life is to do Bhagwan's work. Why are you getting disappointed? Our master is not an ordinary person. He is Lord of the creation. Even if we fail in doing something, it is his failure only. Why? Because we are doing his work, right? He only has given us the strength. We will do our best. If we fail, that is up to him. Bhagwan quickly sent Sampati ji. He says, it is my reputation is at stake. I cannot allow my devotees. So Vedanta says all of these sambandhas we accept as at conditioning level. But Vedanta says Jiva and Ishvara, they are one when it comes to Shuddha Chaitanya. So how to understand Mahavakya? such that we get Akhandartha Bodha. That is going to be the process now. So it's a little technical, but we'll go slow and do our best to appreciate and understand. 3 different types of sambandhas are going to be pointed out. Relations are going to be pointed out between the words. So Vedanta says, don't open the statement Tat Tvam Asi as Samasta Pada. They are individual words, it is a sentence. How those words are related to each other, that we will analyze. The whole analysis is going to be in that way. But Mahavakya Vichara, we should not think of it as an intellectual exercise. Although it might seem that way. It is said Mahavakya Vichara is Mukti Sadhanam. Mukti Sadhanam means the instrument for Moksha. That which precedes Moksha is Mahavakya Vichara. The path to Moksha. Why? He says, if we don't do Mahavakya Vichara and Jivatva remains, if Jivatva remains, Samsara will remain. Samsara will remain here and hereafter also. Because what brings us back into transmigration is Jivatva. If Jivatva is there, desires will be there. Desire is there, karma will be there. Karma is there, karma phala is there. Karma phala is there, body is there. So he says Mahavakya Vichara is very, very important. This is the main sadhana actually. One is called as Bahiranga sadhana. Bahiranga sadhana means all the japa, puja, all other practices that we do. It is called as Bahiranga. Antaranga sadhana is Shravana Manana Nididhyasana. Antaranga sadhana. Vedanta is little subtler now here. He says Antaranga sadhana is Shravana Manana Nididhyasana. Sakshath sadhana. Sakshath means that which will directly give this liberation. He says that is Mahavakya Vichara. Antaranga, Bahiranga should bring me to Antaranga. Antaranga should take me to Sakshath. Okay, so next session onwards, we will begin this. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om.